Good morning. This is John Richardson speaking with you from Toronto, Canada. Today is Friday, May the 30th. It's about 10:30 in the morning in Toronto, and it is 6 hours later, I believe, where my return guest is today, and I'm pleased once again to introduce you or reintroduce you to Captain Ronald Aries of KLM Captain fame, the accidental American, the pilot accidental American, I think is probably how he's mostly thought of. And he has carried, the extraordinary and significant burden of about challenging FATCA oppression levied against accidental Americans, upside down, sideways, diagonally, and every which way for a number of years. And this is probably the fourth or fifth podcast that I have done, okay,
Yep.
that I've done with him over the years. So welcome back, Ronald. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine, reasonably fine. Yeah, I really prepared myself and for this podcast, but I think I've sorted out too much paperwork. I see now, and it is right if you people keep on listening to the podcast, you keep it really short and simple because it should be
Yeah, well,
simple.
I think that, largely, I think this is an update, but I think it's worth for people actually going back. And I probably should draw attention to some of the earlier podcasts because you did have some success a few years ago in getting a ruling that think of this. Think of this. Somebody born in the United States could continue to have a bank account.
Yeah.
That was your case, wasn't it, Ronald?
That was the case. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
They-
So, it's almost like boldly go where no accidental has gone before, the opportunity to have a bank account. But you know what? Let's begin very shortly with a brief review of what life events brought us together to podcast number 4 today. So, how did it in the beginning?
You mean in the beginning when we had our first podcast?
No, in the beginning, where were you born and why and what happened?
Oh, what happened? Oh, yeah. Oh, that is already almost. I whispered 67 years ago. Oh, correct. No, it's not correct. I must say the difference. I was born in 1958 in Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. My father was there stationed for the Dutch Air Force. Fortunately, my mother she got also approval to come to the United States to like a kind of family reunion. And then I was born in the military hospital there. And yeah, you asked me in the podcast before, what is your remembrance of being an American citizen? In fact, only the pictures.
You
That
don't
is
actually have any memory of having been born in the United States.
no. I was 9 months old when we arrived in Holland, and that
So
makes me
you had no sense at that point in your life that you'd accidentally acquired a precious asset.
no, no, not at all, no. And I wish
And you grew
I will be living in this time now because now easily every person like me is being I call it revoked in the United States because we're not longer wanted anymore. Oh gosh, I wish I was there at that time because this is real. Yeah, this is real discrimination towards all these European accidental Americans. What they do, they bully
well.
us
Let me
really
just
around.
ask you let me ask you a couple questions here. Do you consider yourself to be an American citizen?
Not at all, not at all. Because I
Do
went
you have an American passport?
yeah, because I needed a passport to leave the United States as a baby.
So
So I
when you were 9 months old, somebody got a passport for you.
yeah, correct, yeah.
Was that the last?
I
The
must have
one and
it
only U.S.
somewhere.
passport?
Yeah, I must have it somewhere, but I don't. I cannot find it anymore.
But that was it. Never renewed.
No. Yeah, but what I then I yeah then I went. You really know you rose up in Holland and you get your education. You go to work. And now I retire now almost now it's 8-9 years ago. So why is it all this hassle? Why do I paid my taxes here? I do everything like a normal person here in Holland. I'm not a fraud person. I pay my duties here, everything. And suddenly,
But then just sort of accidentally, the bank finds out that you were born in the United States, and that was when all the trouble began. Is that correct?
the problem is when you have a Dutch passport, it says it stipulates into the passport where are you born, and it's Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. Bam, there you go. All the red lights flash, and you're no longer wanted anymore. And then let's say if you're born from a U.S. parent in Holland, which also make you a U.S. person, then there's nothing in your passport. You're born in, let's say, in Haarlem or in Bargem, where I live now. Nobody will look into it. Say, hey, you're a U.S. person. The moment they look in your passport and there's an American city mentioned in the passport, yeah, you're red hot.
So basically, if you're born in the U.S., you really can't hide.
No, no.
Sooner or later, somebody
Already.
will find that by virtue of your birth, you're a U.S. person. And
No.
you spent all these years flying these KLM planes into the United States, right into American airspace.
Yeah, but that
And
was that was before my retirement, so I didn't know anything about it.
so you never felt any sense of home, when you learned you were in American airspace, you never felt like you were coming home or anything.
Oh no, 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 not at all, not at all. No, no. I'm more like I like Africa a lot. That is the continent I would like to fly. I had the most wonderful times over there. The United States is nice, I also went on holiday with my wife. Yeah, there was a tremendous time. You go to the big parks and only one day in Las Vegas because we didn't like it over there. So we traveled Hoover Dam. We had a 3 weeks fantastic time.
Mm.
But that was it.
But it didn't make you feel American, though.
No, 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 not at all. I was a tourist, and
Mm.
I thought because I'm sure there's so many American people. They're so very nice, polite. So there's nothing wrong with it. I like the people. But I don't like the government anymore.
Well, I think that, there may be one or two people who agree with you. And who knows, some of those people might even be in the United States. However, all right. So the problems began. And so you had a hearing last week or another hearing last week that I want to talk with you about a bit. My impression, understanding, and what I've learned over the years from you and from your lawyer is that these hearings have essentially been about different issues at different times, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So the one last week, as I understand it, was about the impact of the existence of the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, on the FATCA IGA. Specifically, does the existence of the GDPR call into question the legality of sending the information of people born in the United States to the U.S. Treasury? Have I got that right?
That is right. Yeah, yeah. That was the same. That fortunately in Belgium, the Belgian DTBA had all the same. They already told them already to the Belgium Ministry of Finance. It's a no. You are not allowed to send all the private information to the United States. But they went to court again, and then they had to withdraw the hearing. And now just recently, and that was just before our own court case, they came up with another statement that it is not longer allowed to give all our information to the United States. And that is the first DPA in Europe who is doing that. And I was really
Okay,
hoping.
so as it stands, all of these, the issue of the GDPR is alive and well in all of these European countries. So Belgium, through its data privacy agency, administratively has reaffirmed their view that sending this FATCA information to the United States is inconsistent with the GDPR, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so, sort of country by country, the equivalent hearing took place last week in the Netherlands, right? Or
That's
2 weeks
correct. Yeah,
ago. Okay.
yeah. It was on May 19th in.
May the 19th. Okay. So
Yeah,
11 days ago.
yeah. There was a
And
multiple member chamber in the Netherlands, and that Yeah, I don't think it's the same as in the United States, because in the Netherlands it offers more care and reduces the chance of errors, while the jury trials in the United States are decided by citizens. So yeah, I was hoping that
Well, so
remember.
there's a hearing according to whatever the law of hearings is in the Netherlands. Okay, so I understand that you attended the hearing.
Yeah, with me,
Okay.
I was there, and only I counted two lawyers of the Ministry of Finance, that is the state, how do you call it again? The state attorney,
Government lawyers.
the state attorney, and two jurors were there, and about 8 or 9 members of the financial department of the Dutch Ministry of Finance. And then I was
And
there.
they were all there to support FATCA information going
Yeah,
to the United States, correct?
correct. Yeah, yeah. And I was there, and Ellen Timmer, she was, yeah, presenting us. Was 3 Dutch people. One is living in Friesland, and she had a small business in Friesland. And she was a hairdresser, but she sold her company because she was really fed up with it, all these FATCA regulations. And there was also another guy. He's only 81 years. He has the same position. His father was in the Dutch Marine, and he was also born in the United States, and also as a child went to Holland. But imagine you're 81 years, you sit there in court fighting and begging, in fact, to get your normal life back.
Oh, I mean, it's completely over the top, and I think that it's sort of it's so surreal that I think it can be understood only by people who actually experienced it, right?
That
And
that is
it is,
that is
it
exactly.
is a shocking life event. I mean, I have clients right now that I'm helping, made the decision that what they want to do is renounce, etc. I mean, it can be a real horror story. But I mean, this is going on, and this is going on. I mean, I think to be fair, we're now in 2025. This is going on, and this needs to be said with the full knowledge, support, and complicity of the government of the United States. You would agree?
Yeah, but what did it
Absolutely.
render? What did it render, in fact, now after so many years? Because I went to Google and I searched for, did really FATCA gave the United States so much money, which I think they would like to have about 8 billion of US dollar, because they had to finance the HIRE Act. But it cost already about, what is it, 575, 580 million dollars, and the revenue is only $40 million, and there's only by the people making mistakes in their tax form, and they get a $10,000 fine. That's the only.
Well, but Ronald, I mean, let's say they did make a lot of money off it. Would that somehow justify it?
No, of course not. No, no, no.
No, I mean, either way, whether they make money off it or whether they don't is completely immaterial. And the fact that they don't make money from it, along with so completely and totally supporting this, suggests that this goes way beyond any issues of money, that it goes, that it really is sort of like, hey, what are these people born in the United States doing, living in other countries and not paying us taxes, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What I also like to discuss with you, because after I won the court case about the $50,000, which I am entitled and allowed to have on my bank account, I looked up in it, and I don't know if you can clarify to me, because I looked up in and said, listen, when I read in the where do I have it? Let me see. What they say? If I live in outside the United States, and I have a bank account outside the United States, I might only have to do my tax when I have more than $200,000 in my bank account. If I live in the United States and I have a foreign account in, let's say, in Holland, you're only allowed to have $50,000 in the account, and then you have to do your tax.
No, I don't actually think that's correct. Okay, I don't
That's
think
what.
your interpretation of that is correct.
Uh, let me finish this, because also the European Committee, the Peti Committee, went to the United States for a so-called the fact-finding mission, and they met also with Mrs. Bean, and she told them even that there is higher thresholds in for the Europeans than the United States. So it's really in here. Do I need to fill Form 8938, statements of specified foreign financial assets? If you are a taxpayer living abroad, you must file if you're filing a return other than a joint return and the total value of your specified foreign assets is more than $200,000 on the last year, and not the $50,000 they say.
Right. So what you're referring to is it's separate from the banking issue. Okay, it's a tax compliance issue. And basically, any U.S. citizen who has foreign financial assets above a certain threshold is required to file Form 8938. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
a foreign bank account, for example, your bank account would be a foreign financial asset. The threshold for an individual who is living in the United States would be $50,000.
Yeah.
And the threshold for a U.S. citizen with a bona fide residence outside the United States would be $200,000.
Yeah, correct.
So, I mean, that's what the story is there. Okay. And I would also add that the Form 8938 is a requirement only if you otherwise have to file a tax return. And that, of course, depends on your filing status. It depends on income, etc. But, I mean, the question, it seems to be, really, okay, is whether this stuff should be going on at all, right? I mean,
That's
this
right,
is
of course.
tied into the whole issue of citizenship, taxation, etc.
Yeah. But imagine how much, if that would really be the fact, how much more air we would breathe now if the $50,000 threshold is, which is not even, it is from 2014 that the $50,000 is now, it's never been, how do you call it, indexed to the newer values. So and now the dollar is getting less and less. So yeah, it's easy to reach the maximum allowable asset you have in your account. But okay,
Well, Ronald, there's absolutely no question. Okay, as a general principle, the effect of inflation is always to bring more people into some kind of a compliance requirement.
yeah,
Okay, all the time.
correct. Yeah,
And we see this, right? But I think where the more interesting issue is that the $50,000 thing is an important number for another reason in FATCA, and that is under the FATCA IGAs, banks are not required to report depository accounts if the balance is less than $50,000. And my understanding of your previous case was that the ruling said that as long as an American abroad, well, in your case in Holland, but everywhere, has aggregate balances of less than $50,000 in depository accounts, right? Which are, day-to-day bank accounts, then those things do not have to be reported under FATCA. And the problem has largely been that many of them are ignoring that. It's very simple. They find a U.S. person, they get excited, they see an opportunity to report them to the IRS, and they feel good about it.
yeah,
And that's what's happening. But, Ronald, this discussion, I think, illuminates the tremendous complexity of what's going on here, right? How many different rules there are for this person, this bank, et cetera, et cetera. And a large part of the problem here is that people can't even understand what's expected of them at a certain point. Would you agree?
I agree. Yeah. And I don't want to discuss all these articles by in the law because it's for me it's not understandable. You're a lawyer, so you know.
No, I know. That's how I know it's not understandable.
Said that
Precisely because I'm a lawyer. You think I understand this?
I was in court case, and it's like I was at a tennis match, maybe a Roland Garros. The state attorney said, "Oh, this." Alan Timmer came back, bang, and then a smash, and then a return. And then you sit there as a complainant, and what can I do? And at the last part, because Ellen Timmer was very pleased with your valid input. She defended, it was very well in court. And also, what I say, luckily, the chairman of the court, he came well prepared, asked the right questions, listened well, and even gave me time to explain how we live our lives. And that I tried to explain in fear, in anger. But that was very, that was almost to the end. And he said, if Ellen Tim had something to add, and she was looking through, going to her papers and so, I said, the first question the chairman asked, how do we feel as accidental Americans? And then Ellen Timmer replied and then said, okay, can I use this time if Ellen is still looking at the paperwork to tell my story myself and also maybe for my compliant. And he said, it really worries me, he said. But still, I think the judge will of course look to the law but when are the judges so fed up with all these laws which are so very discriminating to normal living citizens? Where does it stop?
Well, it doesn't, okay, because one of the problems of being a lawyer and then becoming a judge is that, especially when the stuff is complex, is there's a tendency to focus on understanding the legal framework. And when you spend all your time understanding the legal framework, you've lost your sense of how this stuff impacts normal everyday people, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I see this all the time. I mean, particularly in the tax compliance area. In fact, I would say that somebody asked me what's a tax preparer of international tax returns, I would say it's somebody who has no idea how it affects an individual.
No.
Et cetera, because of the complexity. But, this is the problem. And Ronald, as you've heard me say millions of times, the problem is not really FATCA. FATCA is a symptom of the United States absurdly claiming the right that anybody born in the United States is U.S. property, and they have the right to impose taxation on them, even in reporting when they don't live in the United States, on income that has nothing to do with the United States. Ronald, it's the American way.
I know. I all wrote down the remarks you made already in several podcasts. Where is it? In other words, the problem is caused by the U.S. citizenship taxation, not by FATCA, and that's completely, you hit it there. It's but yeah,
and I think that again, now I acknowledge that this is my opinion, but this opinion of mine is strengthening over the years. Is that the difficulty with these FATCA litigation and FATCA hearings is that it always seems to somehow assume that the United States actually has the right to reach into other countries and look around and point to people and claim them as U.S. taxpayers.
Yeah. Well, what about the Privacy Act nowadays?
Oh, what's that got to do with you having been born in the United States, Ronald?
Yeah, but that's all. Everything the state attorney said is about the statement of defense was, the Dutch IGA provides sufficient appropriate safeguards for the protection of the personal data of claimants. Under what rock does he live? How much damage you have to see? That is not true what he says. There is no protection of data anymore.
Of course, there's no protection of data, Ronald, and the very fact they mask it.
It's like a virus.
Sorry?
You give all my information, all my personal data. You give it there. You put it there, and it spreads and it spreads. And before I know, it's I'm nobody, because somebody else will take my identity. And
well, Ronald, there's good news and there's bad news. Okay.
Okay, tell me the good news first, then.
You're a nobody. Because if you were a somebody, man, you'd have much bigger problems.
Okay. Yeah. I'm how do you call it? It's a fruit, low-hanging fruit. That's easy to pick.
You may be that, but also don't take this personally, because I really enjoy talking to you and I like you and I think you're a great guy. But so I set this up for what I'm about to say. Ronald, nobody really cares about you, okay?
No, really. No. So leave me alone. Leave me live my life.
Well, you got a better chance. Okay. I mean, the thing is that you kind of you took this on, you made this a personal cause. And honestly, Ronald, you should be congratulated for that. I mean, you've got tremendous strength of character. That's how you should see yourself. And that's how everybody who knows you and knows of you and listens to this should see you. Okay.
Yeah.
But, along with that, comes the problem of, these kinds of court hearings. So basically, what happened was that I know it was not a long hearing because I got a message from your lawyer when it was over.
Yeah.
And really, it was sort of, they said, oh, no problem. Data privacy rights are fully protected, for this reason and that reason. And, you and your lawyer said, well, no, that's in fact an outright lie. And I mean, did you find any of the arguments, one way or the other, particularly compelling on this? I mean, what was it like to sit there in this hearing, with all of these government people, basically trying to subject you to the unfairness of FATCA, and there you are, with maybe a few other allies and one lawyer. I mean, did you feel kind of overwhelmed?
I was not in fact, I was not surprised, but when we entered the court building and I saw all these people standing there from the attorneys, lawyers, and civil servants, and they are standing there with paid by our money, our governmental money, all the tax. So they have really deep pockets because they can, yeah, go to court and try to get their rights. But we have to scratch our money to pay, let's say, to pay Alan Timmer. And that it is so easy to go out shopping with somebody else's his wallet. And I was really in fact pissed off.
Well, I don't blame you. They're using your money to wage war against you and abuse you and override your privacy rights. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, that's exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And it continues 44 pages long. The state attorney, and not even mentioning the penalties because I don't mention the penalties. It's all like the former podcast bit. It's all a lot of blah blah blah. Safeguard here, safeguard there, Privacy Act. Oh, everything was okay.
No, all of that was garbage. I saw their claims. They didn't even understand the statutes they were citing. It was total garbage.
Yeah.
The question, though, is, where does this go? Because, these tribunals have to, there's not even the issue of can they make the right decision. The first question is, do they have the courage to make the right decision if they even knew what the right decision was?
Now, in my opinion, they're really cowards.
There you go. And that's the problem. Okay.
They're like the judge. The judge said, "Listen, if the Belgian DPA says it is wrong what you do," he told the state attorney, every DPA in the Europe should be on the same line, on the same header. It is wrong. So why is there a division? Because I don't believe our own Dutch DPA is very strong. And they said, nah. I listened to him.
Well,
Yeah.
This is the thing, right? The bottom line is that when you get into these kinds of fights, it's an issue not only of being right on the law, but it's an issue of finding the people with the right moral fiber and character. Okay. And that's harder because I do not see the law on this as complex at all. I see it as having a lot of moving parts, but I don't think it's complex. Okay.
It's also the what I wrote down is the arrogance of all the politicians. They only think they can come up out of the mouth is, yeah, we understand, but yeah, what they say, it's but what they say in fact is, we don't care. As long as their own family or their own living standards is being involved, they don't care.
That's right.
In the past, we have spoken to the Dutch MPs, and they promised us to fight with us in the second with the Tweede Kamer in Holland, and two of them came in a different position. One became a state secretary of the finance, and even the other one became in fact a ministry of finance. And then suddenly, a total silence. First, they tell us to everybody, "Oh, it's wrong what's happening," and once they are in the position to change it, they don't do. We wrote letters to them, no answer at all. They were hiding.
That's right. So it's even worse, Ronald, than they're not caring. it's not only that they don't care, but that they don't care that they don't care.
Yeah, correct.
So it's even worse. Okay, well, look, it's really been great to catch up with you again, and we will be speaking again when the decision comes down. Why don't we table this until the decision comes down, and then we can analyze it?
Yeah, that's
But
correct.
once again, I want to publicly congratulate you for your character and your courage. Because if nothing else, through this, you are demonstrating that character and courage matters and that there are some people that have still got it.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for that. And why don't we commit to picking up this discussion when the decision comes down? Does that sound good?
That sounds a good idea. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for enjoying me your beautiful surroundings.
Oh, we're in the Toronto Ravines today. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ronald.
See you soon then. All right. Bye,
Yep.
John. Bye-bye.